All right, everybody. Here we are again. Craft Brews, casual conversations. I said brews weird. I said broosh. But I'm not going to fix it. I'm not going to go back. We're in another situation where the week kept on weeking. The time kept on ticking. And unfortunately, my trusty co-host is not on the other end of the microphone to say those magic words. Cue it. So we're going to keep on going with a new little segment, a new little thing that I want to call Drew Spews. I'm going to talk about some trending topics. That's right. And I'm going to give you my opinions about it. Gosh darn it, because that is what is happening. I've ran out of ideas. My wife and I were going to record last night. It couldn't happen because the little man wouldn't go to sleep. And by the time he was asleep, I was snoozing off at the couch. That's the way life works. Life is busy. Life keeps on going. Time doesn't stop. So I thought, this might be a fun little thing to do. I don't have anything to drink either because, once again, I don't have time to go to the store and peruse all the beer options out there. But gosh darn it, I was at work earlier today, and I'm like thinking to myself, I could really go for an IPA right now. It's been a minute. It's been a while since I've really enjoyed an IPA. I miss those delicious beverages, and the weather has been like abnormally hot, which I don't like. Still reminds me of that summertime. So, you got to crack those summertime IPAs. Gosh darn it. And, all right, so here we go. A couple of topics we're going to talk about. I'll highlight them a little bit. We're going to talk about Taylor Swift a little bit. We're going to talk about Dave Grohl. And then we're going to talk about bourbon and beer because it's dudes with brews on a porch. Everybody has been exposed to these stories probably. Everybody has some knowledge on these stories, and I'm going to give you my opinions on it. In my slumber last night, upon taking a little rest on the couch last night, waiting for the go-ahead to enter the room quietly because the little guy is sleeping, I woke up and I look at the TV, and on the news, they're talking about Taylor Swift impacting the upcoming presidential election. She endorsed Kamala Harris. I'm sorry if I said it wrong. I've been corrected on it before, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The Democratic nominee, Kamala Harris, has been endorsed by Taylor Swift, and I think somewhere in my sleep stupor, they said there was an uptick in voter registration after that occurred. And does Taylor Swift possess the power of getting votes for somebody in the other political in a political party? Now, I'm be straightforward. I'm going to be honest with you. I am a liberal. I tend to vote Democrat. Actually, I always have voted Democratically. I have. I've never voted for a Republican in my life, in my ability to do it. I'm turning 34 on Saturday. So, I've been a part of some elections, and I've never voted Republican. I'll never say never, but there's slim pickings. So I am a liberal person. So of course, I'm going to vote blue as well in this upcoming election. That's me personally. I'm not going to fault you. I'm not going to debate you. I'm not going to think less of you for disagreeing with me. And that's fine. My point is, I think it's crazy that we live in a world in 2024 where not only is Taylor Swift bringing an audience to the NFL that has never watched football before or never had an interest watching football before. Now she's impacting the political landscape of the world. What can this lady not do? She's got the skills galore. She's got pipes, meaning she can sing well. She's dating Travis Kelce, one of the best tight ends, arguably, in the NFL, in the history of the NFL. He's pretty gosh darn good. And now she's got the pull to collect some votes. And it's fine because it's the person that I'm going to vote for, so I'm not going to argue with her, and I'm not going to diminish if this power is actually real. The news was talking about it. So this is why I was just like, is it really that slow on the news day that we need to discuss Taylor Swift's political pull? Maybe. But my argument behind it was like, no, I'd rather have people do their own research. I'd rather have people go to the candidates' websites, look at the issues, see what their statements are about them, see if they have a plan about them, and find which ones you agree with more. And then that's your decision. I agree with this candidate more than the other one, so therefore I should probably vote for them. That's the system I do. It really is. I go on their websites, I see what they're all about, and I go, do I agree with them on that? No. Okay. Check mark in the no column there. And then I go to the next one. And you know, there's things I agree with one candidate on the right side, and there's other areas that I don't. For the most part, I'm always in the yes, and a lot of the yes columns for the left side. But that's not always the case, okay? So don't say I'm like some like one trick pony. I do my research. I do the things. I don't really talk about my political opinions too much, but I think you can gather after 300 some odd episodes, you know where I stand. And it is what it is. And we have the right to agree or disagree. But Taylor Swift, she's taking over the world, gosh darn it. I keep saying gosh darn it because I'm sitting in the studio where I record for my radio shows and I can't swear on them. It's really interesting. And I say gosh darn it all the time on air instead of god damn it. But it's kind of interesting how like place can really impact the way you're speaking. When I'm in a professional location, I'm speaking professionally. You're darn tootin' I am. But when I'm at home, I say motherfucker and things like that. So yeah, Taylor Swift, what are you doing? You're taking over the world. You're polluting the air with your private jet, going on your world tours. You're going to every Kansas City Chief game, and you probably don't even have to pay for it. You're not paying for those luxurious box seats. I saw you at Lambeau last year. You were right above me. That's right. I know you didn't pay for that. You just got put into somebody's box. That's crazy. While the hardworking Americans out there are dropping all this money to get season tickets and dropping all this money to go to the games, and you're rich because you sing songs that are really popular. And now you're trying to watch that be like the reason for the next big insurrection. Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift's opinion really is the reason voter fraud or something like that. Who knows? That would be unreal. Anyways, also looking at it on the other side of music. So we just talked about the biggest pop star of all time. Let's talk about a person in the world of rock and roll, radio rock and roll, I should say. I wouldn't say Dave Grohl is one of the biggest figures in the world of rock and roll, but he's pretty popular. I like Dave Grohl, drummer for Nirvana. He used to drum for Queens of the Stone Age. Of course, there's the Foo Fighters. He released like a metal hardcore album. I forget what the name of that band was, but I listened to it and he's like screaming and stuff. It's pretty sweet. He drums for Tenacious D, or he used to. He's been on their albums, the original albums. He was their drummer. He's done a lot of cool stuff. He's a guy who's really like a musician's musician, I think. Overall, swell fella that people love and people know. He's making headlines because he went to Instagram. He went to social media to say, you know what? I have a love child out of wedlock. Baby's been born. He publicly came onto the internet to tell the world of his infidelity and addressed it. And I'm thinking, you think his wife put him up to this? Like, obviously he's trying to restore that relationship, and I'm sure something would have been released eventually, but for him to like come out and be like, yeah, this is what happened. This is what I did. And I don't regret the fact that I have a newborn baby. I'm going to raise this baby. I'm going to be a present father like I am to my other kids. But I was also unfaithful to my wife. I think that's pretty crazy. The crazier thing of it is pretty funny, is that everyone is now like boycotting Dave Grohl. They're like, I thought Dave Grohl was a real swell fella. I thought that he was pure. Talking about make my way home and learn to fly. Somebody getting the best of you. All that kind of stuff. Just a great person. But now I find out that he cheated on his wife, and I'm swearing off the Foo Fighters for the rest of my life. Are you kidding me? Isn't that what rock and roll has been all about since the 1970s, for crying out loud? I'm talking about radio rock, mainstream rock and roll. I listen to a lot of punk. I listen to a lot of hardcore. I listen to a lot of ska and stuff like that. I'm talking about mainstream sex, drugs, rock and roll. Dave Grohl was unfaithful. That's not cool. You shouldn't do that. But should we really be surprised as a society? Should we really think like, should we swear off the Foo Fighters for God's sake? I don't think so. It's insane to me. And I was like, and this is where you draw the line? This is where your morals stand? Dave Grohl cheating on his wife and having a kid? If he didn't have a kid, nobody would know and nobody would care. Tommy Lee has fornicated with everything under the sun, for God's sake, and has lived to tell the story. Sold books about it. Millions of copies of the books have been sold about it. And dude still sells out to her. Molly Crew was having orgies in the back room of your local dive bar. Doing crazy stuff. Being unfaithful to everybody. People still love Molly Crew. And I don't really have an opinion on it. I just think it's crazy. I just think it's ironic that this is where you draw the line. Dave Grohl cheating on his wife. You don't have any other moral dilemmas that are more world renowned that you can consider, that you can think about. It's it's just insane. I still like Dave Grohl. I think he's a good guy. I think he'll be fine. And you know what? If his wife divorces him, I'm sure she'll get some sort of lump sum of money. That would be nice, huh? You'll continue to be rich. You'll continue to have your life, and you'll keep on keeping on. That's what you got going on. That's what you got to do sometimes, I guess. I don't know. Do people care about Dave Grohl? Do people talk about it? Do people care about this segment called Drew Spews? Drew Spews just bullshit, and that's why it's called Drew Spews. The topic I want to talk about now that is really pertaining to the world of craft beer and the craft drink industry. Bourbon versus beer. Is bourbon the new craft go-to? It's a switch I've seen a lot of people make these days. Bourbon is now turning into a hobby, collecting various types of bourbon that are available to the masses. Sorry, I had to pause again because I had a phone call. But yes, bourbon versus beer. A lot of people are chasing various bourbons. Buffalo Trace is a popular one. Weller, Eagle Rare. These are all brands that Buffalo Trace makes. They're worth, anywhere, your regular marketplace price, MSRP, as they say, $35 for a bottle of it. But it's in such high demand, and because it takes 5 years for whiskey to turn into bourbon, to be bourbon, it's a process, and if you see it on the shelf, it's gone. It's gone quickly. So then now there's these proverbial bourbon hunters out there, and it reminds me a lot of what craft beer used to be. So these bourbons, I found a bottle of Buffalo Trace at a liquor store. Normally, retail is $35. They were selling it for $60, and people will pay for that, which is crazy to me. But it reminds me of the beers. I think of King Sue from Toppling Goliath. It was a very hard to find beer. Pseudo Sue was their staple beer at Toppling Goliath for a long time. It still probably is. It's pretty good. It's pretty delicious. And then they have this King Sue IPA as well, which I love. I think it's delicious and I really like it. But I remember I was going from place to place to place looking for it. Impossible to get. If you could find it, it's marked up to super high amounts. And now you can get it everywhere. I don't know if that's going to be the case for bourbon, though. But a lot of my friends who, we grew up drinking beer. We grew up, of course, drinking all the shitty stuff for a long time. Eventually moving to craft, moving to sort of different IPAs, all the stuff that we drink on the show, really, and continue to drink on the show. But now that's been moved to bourbon, and I've kind of seen that even on Reddit, even on just different forums, people have moved to bourbon, and it's crazy that there are these events. I talked about it last week where I was at this bottle raffle event where you get a raffle ticket. If your number's pulled, you get the opportunity to buy one of the allocated bottles that they have of hard to find stuff, and you purchase it. Those bottles went from 40 upwards to, I think a couple bottles were $300, and you had to pick out of whatever was left. Which is fine. It was a fun event and there's a lot of stuff going on. You don't see that with beer. And I don't, maybe you used to. You kind of see it with the Black Friday stuff with the Goose Island bourbon stout releases that they do. And those are good. I get my hands on those every year. And not all of the variants, but most of the variants I can get my hands on, which are delicious. But, I've kind of turned into this bourbon hunter kind of guy. I don't know if I'm just buying into the hype or if or what. But every time I have some of it, I enjoy it. I'm able to distinguish different tastes, different flavors of it. It started with drinking them in old fashions, but then I was like, I'm just going to drink this with an ice cube in it. And it's delicious. It's tasty. It's a good sipper. I like that too. I like that about the bourbon. I've talked about this on the show too. When I have a bourbon stout, it's a sipping beer. It's a drink that you can sip and sip and sip, and it lasts a long time. Therefore, like, you don't really have to indulge in a ton more to keep occupying yourself with a drink, I guess you could say. And it makes it so you're good to you're not gonna have a hangover the next day unless you have like 800 bourbons and stuff like that. Obviously, then you have a problem. But bourbon is great. Bourbon is fun. It's cool to learn about. I like the whole process. Same thing with beer. I like learning about different beers. I like learning about different bourbons. But I think there's something a little more rewarding right now about going to the store or going to these even smaller liquor stores, and then you see that hard to find stuff that you see on Reddit all the time that people are paying astronomical amounts for, and then they're selling it for MSRP, and you get it. There's something more rewarding. It's like a trophy almost. It used to be like that with beer, but now it's not like that anymore. And there's so many different kinds of beer. There's so many different kinds of bourbon, but there's way more kinds of beer out there that I don't think that hunt is as thrilling and exhilarating as what it is for bourbon. And I just think it's fascinating how the older you get, I am slowly turning into just a geriatric pile of trash, I worry about the condition of my front lawn if it's too long and if people are walking on it. and then I worry about I no longer drink as much beer, and I lean towards more of the bourbon. I still drink beer though. I still love beer. That's never going to change. But if I'm given an opportunity to have a bourbon or a beer, I'm probably going to have a bourbon first, and then maybe I'll have a beer later in the evening, depending on where I am and what's going on. But it's interesting how that's shifting a little bit. And I'd be interested to hear if that's shifting in other people's circles or if it's just mine. I don't think it's just mine, because I would say, bourbon was bourbon always this popular? And I just wasn't aware of it until now. I'm a part of it, so I'm more aware of it. How did it get to be so popular? How did these brands that are like selling, like, I guess you would call them bottom shelf bourbons, get to be the price point of over $100 and people weren't willing to pay for them? I don't know, but it's interesting to see. You don't see, or maybe you do, you don't see people chasing bottles of vodka that one. Vodka's easy to make. Nobody's going to a raffle for a bottle of Grey Goose, I just don't think you see it with any other type of liquor. You might see it with some whiskeys, but then like if a whiskey is aged long enough in the barrel, it turns into bourbon, and that's like the qualifications. I think it's got to be in the barrel for at least 5 years. It has to meet a certain alcohol proof. It's got to be a certain mash that you use with it for it to be a bourbon, and there's a lot to it. And I think maybe that's why it's harder to get, because it's such a long process, where all the other stuff you can kind of make pretty quickly. I think gin, I don't even know what the hell gin is. Gin and Juice, I know that song, it's a banger. But I don't think a lot of people are going out there for gin. They can just get it. People aren't really wondering what brand they want to try or what bottles to be looking for, and you are with bourbon. Same thing with beer. We're just not seeing it that way anymore, and it's just interesting. So if you have a similar experience, let me know. Also, if you know a way of getting some different kinds of bourbon, let me know. It's hard to find. You see the Jim Beams everywhere. You see those mass-produced ones everywhere. But I would argue they do not all taste the same. You do have different flavor profiles. You do have different aspects of them. Same thing with beer. Not all IPAs are treated equal, There's different processes to all of them. But man, am I jonesing for a cold IPA. I'm also jonesing for a conversation with my friend Rob. I miss him very much. I talked to him a little bit here on the phone. We had a good conversation the other night, but we're getting to this point, and maybe it's maybe it's a point where we review some things on if we're on what we're going to do. You know what I mean? I don't want this to be the end. I don't think it's going to be the end. I think right now we're just at a point where we're busy and we got to find some time in our schedule. October's around the corner, so our month of Strange Brew, that's got to happen. I love doing those. That's always a lot of fun. And of course, we have all the Christmas adventures that we always do. So I think we'll be able to get through those. I think we'll be able to do them and establish them. We'll find our groove again. We'll get into the time. People get in funks sometimes and things happen. You get time on the schedule, something pops up, you don't have that time anymore. That's just the way the world works. So it's fun. I miss Rob a lot. I miss talking to him. Usually we save all of our good conversation for the podcast. So even when I do call him, I try not to bring up certain things, unless I say, hey, this is the topic I want to talk about. Let's look into it a little bit more. But yeah, I miss him. He's doing well. He's living a good life in California. We're really going to put him to the test and see if he listens to this. I don't know if he will. Uncle Chris, I hope you're listening to this. I hope this was entertaining. I hope you have some opinions about it. Yeah, we'll check in with you. We're going to get back to format. We're going to get back to some things. We haven't done a Tunes and Brews in a long time, so I probably should just get some of those in the can for then when these bumps in the road come that we can't, we got something to put out. We really shouldn't miss a deadline. We do it all the time. If we were professional podcasters, we'd make sure we have something available for the people. But that's not how it works always with the independent stuff. We still have lives. We still have families. We still have obligations that we got to take care of. And you know what? We got to take care of ourselves as well. We got to give ourselves a mental break every once in a while. We got to cut loose. We got to do some things that we enjoy. We enjoy the podcast, but sometimes other things take priority over that, and that's nothing to be ashamed about. If you like what you hear, I encourage you to listen to the other episodes. If you like what you hear and you want to get some merch, we got some good stuff on our TeePublic. Go to our Instagram at Dudes with Brews Pod. Hit the link tree. Look at all the cool stuff that we have. We got some good designs. They're pretty fun to put together. They're fun. Show's fun. I look forward to drinking an IPA very soon with my friend Rob, who I miss you. I miss you so dearly. Your voice echoing in my head through the headphones. Rob even got a switch, a mixer. We got to see if it works, but he got one. So we're sprucing up our game, baby. We're getting there. Looking forward to it. Take care of yourselves, everybody. I hope you like this Drew Spews thing. Just random bullshit topics that no one really cares about, but it's just comical. Taylor Swift controlling the political landscape of the world, at least of the U.S. Dave Grohl has a love child. And bourbon and beer, you know what, are delicious. Love them both. Love them like they're your children. But don't love them to the point where you can't live your life, Don't be an alcoholic. And if you are, get some help. See ya.